Hi everyone, I'm back again in part 3, episode 3 of the series. So I have finished my top. I have my 3 blocks, and in your pack you have your backing fabric and your wadding. So you want to press the back so that you don't have any creases in there. Lay the wadding on top, and this is the opportunity to just turn your top over and make sure that you don't have loose threads, that you don't have seams going in directions you don't really want them to be going. This is the last opportunity that you will have to get to the back of the pieced front. Likewise, sometimes you'll find that you have some loose threads or some threads that are coming from somewhere that you're not quite sure where. So again, this is the opportunity to make sure that you just take all of those away. Now, you are now ready to layer up your piece of work. There are different ways of doing this. You can do it with long pins. You can do it with 505 temporary adhesive. You can do it with safety pins. So I'm giving you that list of things, and now I'm telling you that's not how I do it. The way that I do it, which is a much more old-fashioned way, and I'm sorry it takes a little bit longer, so therefore this is why I have a second sample here. And that is to stick down with some masking tape the backing fabric onto a desk, a table, something, and then hold it in place. So your masking tape all around the backing. Top, wadding and top. Then I simply tack. And I tack a grid. So the stitches are going to be about 1 centimetre long, maybe 1 centimetre gap between, maybe a little bit longer. For this size of piece, I have 1 horizontal strip, 2, 3. I have 4 rows of horizontal tacking, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I suppose I've missed one. I have probably 8 rows of vertical tacking. Because what you're trying to do at this point is to make sure that these 3 pieces will start to work as one textile. This makes it much easier to put through the sewing machine, so you can roll it up into a sausage to put through the throat of the machine. Or if you are going to hand quilt, which is another option, that will take a little bit longer, so therefore, again, you want the piece to be starting to work as the one textile. If you are going to machine quilt, then you need one of these for your sewing machine. This is a walking foot, sometimes called a dual feed foot. You will need to take the foot and ankle off your machine, as this fits on to the shank of the machine. Okay, you have a hook here that goes round the shank. This piece is going to go over the screw that holds the needle in place. The aim of this piece of kit is to act as the feed dogs do on the base of the machine. This acts in the same way on the top. So you have 2 synchronized mechanical teeth taking the fabric sandwich through evenly, so it will not create as many puckers. Whenever you are quilting, we have found that on the sewing machines it is best to use a quilting thread along the top of the machine, but to use an ordinary 50 weight thread in the bobbin. We find this gives you a better, more even stitch. Again, these are 100% cotton, and that's what you've got in your pack. You have your Metler quilting thread, so that's going to go on the top of the machine, and you're going to use the same thread that you've used for your piecing in the bobbin. You will also need to extend the length of the stitch because you're now going through not just 2 layers of fabric, but an additional layer of wadding. I am not going to quilt in this little video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you ideas. You can follow lines that already exist in this pattern, or you can mark some lines on here to follow to do your quilting, to do different designs. Now, Elliot says that on this particular one, he would like to see roses in these cream areas here. I think that would be quite nice in a nice pale pink thread, perhaps. And you might even want to hand quilt those in, because it doesn't have to be just one technique. You can do some machine quilting to stabilize the quilt, and then do some embellishing work, really, to hand stitch some little flowers on, or that choice is yours. So going back to the 4 kits that we have created for you, we have used different means, different methods of quilting so that we could show you different ideas. Now, this particular one, we have decided that it was very modern based and really quite angular, so we stuck with that. And we have some squares. This has just been marked on using a Frixian pen and your large ruler. We've done some diagonals going across. So big diagonals and some squares. I'm going to turn this over. We just have calico on the back of ours because we thought it would be easier for you to see where we had quilted. So we have square, square, diagonals. Very modern take to go with the fabric choices. Going to move on to the batik one. Now, with batik fabric does not like Frixian pens. So do not use a Frixian pen on batik fabrics. So you need to use perhaps a chalk pencil, or the Japanese again have come up with a very useful tool. It's called a hira marker. Hira actually means scratch in Japanese. So what you're doing is creating a crease or a scratch across the fabric. So it's just giving you an indentation to follow with your machine. I really am going to turn this one over. This is going to be much easier for you to see. So here we have quilted in the ditch around the star. So that is stitching where the seam allowance isn't. I'll talk about that in more detail on another of these samples. So again, we have done some squares, but these have been created by drawing the diagonals. Yeah, makes it a lot easier. So your big ruler and a marking pencil. Always mark on the front because that's really where you want to be sewing from. So you need to be able to see where you're going to be sewing. For each of these kits, we have put in a coordinating quilting thread, so it does enhance the entire piece of work. So no Frixian pen on this one. You're going to use a chalk pencil or a hira marker. Right, let's move on to the vintage one. So this vintage one, we have quilted in the ditch throughout. So that means you are going to follow lines that already exist on your quilt because you are following lines down these lines, okay? So we generally when we were sewing our seams and pressing, we were pressing towards the darker fabric, which means that our seam allowance is under the darker fabric. So our stitching, whenever we're stitching in the ditch, is going to be in the shadow of that seam allowance. So we're coming down here. Whenever we get to here, we're still going to make sure we stay on the white fabric all the way down. Let me just turn it over again, and you can see that we have gone down each of the rows, and we have stitched across the seams in the 9 patch. We have followed the lines of the friendship star going around the darker fabric, and that has been machined. I then decided that I was just going to do a little bit of hand quilting along here so that you could see this was an option for you. So just about 1/8 of an inch away from the star, I have done some hand quilting with a thread that matches this nice coral red. So everything has been very much on the straight lines, either on the angle or actually vertically and horizontally. So we thought we better cover some curves. So on this country one, we have taken a small dinner plate, to be honest, and created these big curves. And we have then also created some smaller curves. The interest here, of course, is whenever they interlink. I'm going to just turn it over, and you can see more clearly on here what we've done. A couple of dinner plates is all you need, or a small dinner plate and a side plate. Or if you're on a diet, then, you know, maybe these are big plates, who knows. So those are the ideas that we're putting forward to you for doing the quilting. So you're going to layer up, you are going to baste or tack in a really as flat as you can possibly get these 3 fabrics. Then you can roll this up, and it's going to go quite easily through a domestic sewing machine. Or if you so wish, you hand quilt. The backing fabric and the wadding that are in your kit is longer than you need to do the piece of work. So I would suggest that you trim a little piece off, leave yourself good margins, you know, leave yourself a couple of inches, but cut this piece off and use this as a bit of a trial run. You're actually using the fabrics then that you have been sewing with. Walking foot on your sewing machine. It's unlikely that you will have had a walking foot included with your machine. Sometimes they are, but they are available to buy separately. But yeah, this is pretty important. This makes life a lot easier. So that's it for the quilting. Once you've gotten your quilting done, you're ready to trim up and get on with your binding. So we'll see you in part 4, next exciting episode.